Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity for us to continue in our lessons in the commentary of Aqeedah Sanusiyyah. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us in tawfiq and hidayah, that we are able to understand. And may Allah bless us with iman and taqwa. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. So today's lesson, inshallah ta'ala, we will enter into the part where the author speaks about the rational proof for pre-eternality, yani pertaining to al-qidam. When we go back to the sifat al-salbiyah, we have the attribute of al-qidam, al-baqa, mukhalafatu lil-hawadis, qiyamuhu binafs, wahdaniyah. So today, inshallah ta'ala, we speak about the evidences or the proofs pertaining to al-qidam, that is the pre-eternality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we are currently, for those who have the book, we are currently at page 145, where the author mentioned the rational proof that pre-eternality is necessary for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that if he were not pre-eternal, he will not be originated and contingently existent. I mentioned a few of these things in our last lesson, and many a times actually, and we mentioned about this fact that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not qadim, then he is hadith. If he is not any qadim, then he is contingent. That is because existence are either pre-eternal or contingent. So existence there of two types. Either it is something that is pre-eternal, in the case of the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or something that is contingent. So there is no other types of existence. Either it is necessary any being, or a possible any being. So either it is qadim or hadith. As for the mustahil, the impossibilities, these are the things that cannot exist. That's what we mentioned many. That's what we mentioned many times. So when we speak about existential beings, it is either something that is pre-eternal or something that is any contingent. So there is number three. There is no three. Either it is one or two. There is no such thing as something else any other than pre-eternality and contingency, because existence are only divided into these two groups from these two groups of categories. That is because any existence are either pre-eternal or contingent, and that's what we mentioned. And there is no intermediary alternative between the two, meaning there is not any something else other than pre-eternal and contingent. So I believe it is straightforward, inshallah, easy for us to understand. Were Allah contingent, he will need an originator. So now the author gives this an example. And if there are people, for example, who claim that God is contingent, for example, that God is contingent. So meaning contingent that he is preceded by non-existence. He's brought into existence. Were Allah contingent, and if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if people say that Allah is contingent, he will need an originator. That's what we mentioned. That something that has a beginning, something that is preceded by non-existence. So there must be an originator that brought it into existence. There must be an external factor, and that's what we mentioned. The murajjih, the one who brings it into existence. And if we were to assume that this originator was like him, and he just like Allah, and like God, contingent according to this argument, the same would apply, and it will be a never-ending circle or infinite regress, both of which are impossible and falsity. Now the author is saying, for the case of the person who says that God and he is contingent. God and he is contingent. So when a person and he claim that God and he is contingent, and meaning God and he has a beginning. So if he has any beginning, then he is in need of an originator. So we need to ask about this any originator. So if this any originator and he is also contingent, yani based on the understanding any of this person that says any that God any is contingent. Right now, any we say the second any God any that brought any the first God any into existence is also any contingent. If the second God any is contingent, then we also need to ask who is the originator. So there is a third God, and the third God is also contingent. Then we need to ask who is the originator. Then the fourth God also has a beginning, and the fifth God and the sixth God. So this will be never ending. This is called any infinite regression, and this is any mustahil. Yani something any that has a beginning, a beginning, it cannot become pre-eternal. So there is a contradiction. And if a person and he says that something and it has a beginning at the same time it can be pre-eternal, and this is mustahil. So if it is any contingent, meaning it has a beginning. So when you have a beginning, it has an originator. So to assume any that this chain and infinite regression and is possible, now this is any wrong. Infinite regression and is any impossible. Infinite regression and is impossible, because at one point of time again, and we will go back any to the same equation. We ask any who is the originator yani of this particular God. So there must be a beginning. So if you trace and you trace and you trace, there must be a beginning. It is impossible any that you cannot get a beginning as long as you say that there is contingency, yani in the existence any of these beings. So this is any pertaining any to infinite any regression. Another one, or there is another what you call it, false any kind any of philosophy any that people any might assume is what they call it as ad-dawr. In Arabic, and we call it ad-dawr. That's what the author any mentioned, and it will be a never-ending circle or infinite regress. And I spoke about infinite regress, the basic example. Now, what is the meaning of a never-ending circle? So by this, I would like to demonstrate. Let me demonstrate something. So the thing is this: you have the first, the second, and the third, for example. This is an example of never-ending circle, never-ending circularity or never-ending circle. In Arabic, we call it dawrun. Dawr, because the meaning dawr comes from the word dara yadur. It means something that is circular. So what is any meaning? Now, for example, if a person say, okay, a person says, for example, that God is contingent. That God is contingent. So now, the first God, this number one is the first one. The first one brought the second one into existence. The first one brought the second into existence. The second one brought the third one into existence. Then who is the one who brought the first God into existence? So it is said that the third one brought the first one into existence. So can you see? This is in a circular. It is in a circular path. So the first one brought the second one into existence. The second one brought the third one into existence, and the third one brought the first into existence. So this is the meaning of dawr. Is this possible or not possible? This is also not possible. Just like how when we say infinite integration, earlier we spoke about infinite integration. infinite any regression, and we do this example in here, same any example, 1, 2, 3. So a person asks, who is the one who brought in this God into existence? Because it's all contingent. So it is said that the second one. So who is the one who brought the second one into existence? The first one. Who is the one who brought the first one into existence? So another one, and so on and so on. So this has never-ending regression. As what we mentioned, this is impossible. As long as it has a beginning, as long as it is contingent, then it must have a beginning. So it is impossible that it can go on without any beginning, because since it is contingent. Likewise, it is impossible for this circularity. Why is this impossible? As for infinite regression, I think it's easy to understand its impossibilities. But when it comes to Dao, it is also clear for us to come to the conclusion that it is impossible. Because how can something that comes later, the first one brought the second one into existence, the second one brought the third one into existence. How can something that is brought later into existence, at the same time it is the one who brought the first into existence? So this is the contradiction between the one who is the doer and the one who is the effect of the action, and they happen at the same time. This is impossible. This is what the author is going to explain. But I just do this simple example, at least we have a kind of a bit a picture of what he is going to speak about. Now when we go back to our text. So the author mentioned, the author said, were Allah contingent, he will need an originator. And if you were to assume that this originator was like him, contingent also, according to this argument, the same will apply. It will be a never-ending circle. Either we say it is Dawr, because when we say the first one is contingent, the second one is contingent, the third one is contingent. But then, who is the one who brought the first one into existence? The third one. So this is the argument of those who says that God is contingent. So it can be one of two possibilities. Either they say it is an infinite regression, or it is a never-ending circle. But both are impossible. It will be a never-ending circle or infinite regress, or infinite regress, and both are impossible and falsity. I hope it is clear, inshallah. Now when we go on to the next page. That is because, now he explained why this circularity is impossible. That is because a never-ending circle implies forwarding and delay. It applies any forwarding and delay for both at one instance, and that each is the doer and the object creating the other. So now when we look at what he is saying, it implies forwarding and delay for both at one instance. And what is the meaning? Forwarding and delay. Now when we look at this example here, what is the meaning of forwarding and delay? Yani, when we look at number 1, number 2, number 3, earlier we mentioned number 1 brought number 2 into existence. Number 2 brought number 3 into existence. So if we follow the sequence, which comes first and which comes later? So we say the first comes first, follow by the second one, followed by the third one. So how can we say something that is the first that brought the 2 into existence, at the same time it is delayed, meaning it is brought into existence by something that is delayed by it? Is it clear, inshallah? This number 3 is delayed by number 1. Number 1 comes first, then number 2, then number 3. How can something that comes later, that is number 3, At the same time, yani, it comes first. Yani, it brought any the first any into existence. So these are the two contradictories. These are the two contradictories. Yani something any that comes first and something any that comes any later. At one any instance, they are at the same point, any meaning the one any who brought the first into existence, the one any who brought any the first into existence is the one any that comes any later. Now this is any impossible. How can it come later? And at the same time also he brought any the first any into existence. So this is what he said, and delay for both at one instance, and that each is a subject doer and the object creating the other. What is the meaning? Yani it is the doer and the what you call it, the one who is created upon. So we have the fa'il and the maf'ul at the same time. Who is the doer here? Now when we say the first one is the doer, the first one and he brought the second one into existence. The first one and he brought the second one into existence. The second one and he brought the third one into existence. So this is the one who is created. But at the same time, it is the one and who create the first one. So this is impossible. Yani, you have something that is created, yani done upon, and something that is and it is the same doer. So it is impossible. How can something be the doer and the maf'ul at the same time? The fa'il and the maf'ul at the same time. This is impossible. Because these are the two contradictions. If he is the subject doer, it would necessitate that he precedes the object. So number one and he creates number two. Which comes first? Number one. So always and at all times it must precede it must precede the object. The object meaning the one that is brought into existence. And he is the object. And if he is the object, it would necessitate that he is after the subject doer. Yani two is after one. One brought brought two into existence. So two came in delay. It comes after number one. So one comes first. Then two, then three. It would necessitate that he is after the subject doer. It is impossible for something to be both forwarded and delayed at the same time. So I hope by now is clear, inshallah. It is impossible and something then is forwarded and delayed at the same time. Now, because that is a gathering of two contradictories. Yani to say that something comes first and something that comes later. The thing that comes later is a creation, but at the same time also it is a creator of the first. So it is both a doer and an object at the same time. This is two contradictories, because when we speak about the doer and the subject must come first, then the subject, and the subject comes later. But to say that the doer and the subject comes at the same time, that is impossible. This is the meaning of the two contradictories. And to say that something comes first and something comes later happens at the same time, also it is two contradiction. As for infinite and regress, it implies a void, farar, and a non-ending chain. Now the author speaks about infinite and regression. So when we speak about infinite regression, and we say contingencies must have a beginning. Contingency and it must have an ending. A beginning meaning it must comes to a point where it has a beginning. Now this is rationally everybody can accept. Rationally every intellectual human being can accept this, because infinite regress assumes the arrangement of a never-ending series of past events. The fact that this never-ending series of past events enters into existence dictates that it does have an end. What is the meaning? Now if something that is in existence and it has a beginning, it has a beginning, despite we say that another thing and he brought it into existence, and another thing brought it into existence. But all these any contingencies that it has any a beginning, so meaning there must be an initial point and that it starts. There must be an initial point and that it starts. So it is impossible to imagine something that is in existence and it has what you call it is preceded by non-existence, but at the same time I need to say that it doesn't have a beginning. So this also is a contradiction. The fact that this never-ending series of past events enters into existence dictates that it does have an end. Let us go back to this one. This is basically we say, for example, number 3 has a beginning. So that we are in need of an originator, and number 2 brought it into existence. And it is if people assume God is contingent. So we ask who is the one who brought this into existence? And number 2. Number 2, who is the one who brought it into existence? Number 1, who is the one who brought it into existence? We say, for example, we start from 4, and then it goes to 5. So meaning if something is in existence, it must have a what? It must have a starting point. If it is contingent, no matter how much a person can try to imagine, if this is something that is in existence, because there is a difference between we say something is in existence or we just an imagination. When it comes to imagination, people can imagine. So here the author is specifying and is saying that we are speaking about the real world. We are speaking about the real world. We are not speaking about imagination, because we are speaking about existential beings. If there is something that is in existence and it is contingent, it must have a beginning. Now this is the beginning, the ending to this regression. There must be an ending, and this is that beginning. Clear, inshallah? And this is preceded by non-existence. So it must have this beginning. So to assume that something is in existence but without a beginning, it is impossible. It is impossible. As for infinite regress, it implies a void, faragh. Faragh meaning the ending. That's what, or we say the beginning of that particular existential beings. And a non-ending chain. Because infinite regress assumes the arrangement of a never-ending series of past events. The fact that this never-ending series of past events enters into existence, so here we're speaking about the real world, not any imagination, dictates, it brings the conclusion that it does have an end. It must have a beginning. Because everything that exists has an end. Everything that exists has an end. Every contingencies, it must have an ending and it must have a beginning. So something that has a beginning must have an ending. All this all also coming when we speak about baqa. Something that has an ending must have a beginning. Something that has an ending must have a beginning. But the thing about infinite regression, we are talking about past events. When we speak about the proof, inshallah, later for al-baqa, we are speaking about future events. Belief in infinite regress necessitates the gathering of two contradictories. This is the same thing as what we mentioned. It necessitates the gathering of two contradictories. What is the contradictories? To say that something is contingent, but yet it has no beginning. But yet it has what you call it, no ending or no beginning to it, and it is impossible. How can it is contingent at the same time, and we say that what you call it, that it doesn't have a beginning, or it doesn't have an ending. If infinite regress and a never-ending circle are invalidated, it is proven that God cannot be contingent. So now anyway, we have understood that infinite regression is impossible. Likewise, circularity is impossible. So now we can understand that it is impossible that God be contingent, that God must be pre-eternal. So this is the evidences to say that God must be pre-eternal. It cannot have a beginning. But the moment we say God has a beginning, then it cannot become God, because it is contingent, and contingencies either leads to infinite regression, which is impossible, or it leads to circularity, which is also impossible, as what he mentions, because it is the gathering of two contradictories. So he must be pre-eternal. Then he mentioned, notice the difference between the contingently possible existence. The difference between the contingently possible existence and the necessary existence is that the former is preceded by non-existence, and it is impossible for it to meet with future non-existence. As for the latter, he is not preceded by non-existence, and it is impossible for him to meet the future of non-existence. This is the difference between wajibul wujud and mumkinul wujud, the necessary existence and the possible existence. So contingently possible existence means that it is preceded by non-existence. So when we say something that is jaizul wujud, it is preceded by non-existence. So this is clear, inshallah. And it is possible for it to meet with future non-existence. Anything that has a beginning must have an ending. Something that is preceded by non-existence, it will have non-existence in the end. And it is possible for it to meet with future non-existence. As for the latter, meaning wajibul wujud, or necessary existence, he is not preceded by non-existence, and it is impossible for him to meet with future non-existence. So when we say that God is pre-eternal, he must be he cannot be preceded by non-existence, and he cannot meet non-existence. So there is no non-existence at all. So this is the meaning of wajibul wujud. Wajibul wujud is an existence that do not accept any non-existence, whether we are speaking about a non-existence that preceded it, or non-existence that comes in the future. So he must always be in existence. This is the meaning of necessary existence. Necessary existence, wajibul wujud. So wajibul wujud is not preceded by non-existence, and it does not accept any non-existence in the future. So if it accepts any non-existence, it cannot be wajibul wujud. It cannot be something that the existence is necessary. So by this we have completed the proof for pre-eternality. Now we go on to speak about al-baqa. So here the author mentioned the rational proof for endlessness. So he said endlessness is a negation of non-existence occurring after existence. This is basically the definition of al-baqa. When we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the attribute of al-baqa, Allah is never ending, does not have any ending. So he has no beginning and he has no ending. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. Allah has no beginning and he has no ending. He is not brought into existence, and he doesn't beget, and not begotten. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala huwal awwalu wal akhir. He is the first and he is the last, meaning first without beginning, last without ending. If it is if it were possible for Allah's existence to cease, Allah's existence to cease, he would not be pre-eternal. If we say that God has an ending, meaning he ceases in existence, he becomes non-existent at one point of time after existence, then he is not pre-eternal. This is not he doesn't possess any attribute of pre-eternality. Something that is qadim, cannot accept non-existence. This is a qaida. This is a principle. So this is what he said. If it were possible for Allah's existence to cease, he will not be pre-eternal. Because something that is pre-eternal cannot cease to exist. Pre-eternality is necessary for him according to clear-cut and unequivocal proofs, clear proofs, that God must be pre-eternal. The moment we say God is not pre-eternal, that's what we mentioned, all the arguments before this. then he cannot become God because he's contingent. And contingencies, we are in need of originator and so on. That is brought into existence. So if we say any that God any has no beginning, he must have no ending. But the moment any we say he has no beginning but has an ending, now it is impossible any that in the first place any he has no beginning. This is what he said. The permissible any existence, pre-eternity is necessary for him according to clear cut and proofs. For without it, his existence any would be permissible. The permissible any existence can only be contingent. Yani if God any has an ending, that means he is jaizul wujud, not wajibul wujud. And jaizul wujud can only be contingent. Jaizul wujud, yani the possibilities, it can only be contingent and only preceded by non-existence. So when we say something that is jaiz any wujud, contingent, it is preceded any by non-existence. And if something is preceded by non-existence, it accepts non-existence any in the future. And something that accepts non-existence and in the future, it cannot be pre-eternal. So this is the thing. If it is proven that pre-eternality cannot be negated from him, it is proven that future non-existence is also impossible. So the moment any we say any God any is qadim, then he must be al-baqi. If he has no beginning, he must have not have any ending. So that is any, if you say that he is beginning, no beginning but have an ending, no, that is impossible. And if that is proven any impossible, it necessitates that God any is endless. So everything, anything any that has no beginning must have no ending. Must have no ending. Otherwise, any it becomes any jaizul wujud. If you say that he has an ending, and if it's jaizul wujud, then he cannot have no beginning. It must have beginning, because the nature any of jaizul wujud, that it accepts any existence any end and non any existence, and it is contingent. It is not any something that is pre-eternal because it accepts any non-existence. So the thing here, and basically what the author is saying, anything any that can accept any non-existence, it is jaizul wujud and not wajibul wujud. So it is impossible and for something to be wajibul wujud, but at the same time jaizul wujud. Now this is impossible. Either it is wajibul wujud or jaizul wujud. If it is wajibul wujud, yani it has no beginning and no ending. If it jaizul wujud, has a beginning and has an ending. And if something is said to have an ending, that it must be jaizul wujud. It cannot be wajibul wujud, because wajibul wujud cannot accept any non-existence. Then he mentioned, notice the above is an expression of the noble principle, everything whose pre-eternality is affirmed, its non-existence and it is impossible. So I hope for those you have the book, please highlight this. Highlight this and memorize. Memorize as how you memorize Surah Al-Fatiha. Everything whose pre-eternality is affirmed, its non-existence is impossible. Clear, inshallah? There is nothing pre-eternal but Allah, the Exalted. So now, inshallah ta'ala, we will stop here. And we will continue, inshallah ta'ala, next week. If there is no question, we will close with dua, inshallah. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, walhamdulillah rabbil alamin.